Hello, and welcome to DataSunrise's functionality demonstration. This demo will show how to install DataSunrise Database Protection Suite on Windows. We've downloaded the installation package and will show how to install DataSunrise. The setup wizard will help us. Click Next. Now choose the destination folder by clicking Change, or use the default destination folder. Then click Next. Now click Install. The installation progress will be displayed on the screen. Now select the location of the DataSunrise configuration. You can choose either a local server or a remote server. Use the local server option when you need to deploy one instance of DataSunrise. The remote server option is used when you need multiple instances sharing one common configuration for high availability. If you choose a remote server option, you need to specify a name which could be anything. This will be a DataSunrise's instance name, and host name and port information, which will be used for accessing the graphical user interface and for connection between DataSunrise's instances. If you click Next, you can choose between two types of databases, PostgreSQL or MySQL. Depending on your choice, you need to set the parameters to connect to a database management system where the DataSunrise firewall configuration will be stored. All the fields should be filled here. In this tutorial, we'll be using a local server option, so we need to go back and click Next after our selection. Now you have to create a password to access the DataSunrise GUI. This password will be used together with the default admin login. Confirm the password and click Next. Then click Finish. But before you do that, please be informed that in order to access the GUI, you need to open the following address in your web browser. Click Finish to finish the installation. To have access to settings and to create security policies for your database after installation of DataSunrise Database Security Suite, we need to open the following address on a web browser: https:// then the IP or the host name of the computer hosting DataSunrise, then : and port 11000. As DataSunrise and the browser are on the same computer, I'm using a local host here. DataSunrise has a self-signed SSL certificate by default, so you should accept it if requested. Now, enter the password you set earlier. The login is admin by default. After that, click the Login button. Now, enter the license key and click Save. If you downloaded DataSunrise from our official website, the trial key was sent to your inbox. And if you bought the DataSunrise license, you were able to get the license key after that. Now we need to create a target database profile that will specify parameters of the database you want protected. We created a PostgreSQL database earlier, which we're going to protect now. You can see a few fields which are needed to set protection parameters for the database. In the Logical Name text field, you can give any name to your database, which will be used as a reference to the database. Let the logical name for our sample database be TestDB. Then select Database Type from the drop-down list. For this video, we'll be using the PostgreSQL sample database mentioned earlier. Please note that the port text field is auto-completed. The database text field is auto-completed too. This field contains the name of a target database. It is required for connection testing in case access to the master database is restricted for the user credentials. The next field is the host name IP that contains the host name or the IP address of a server the database is installed on. I'm putting the current host IP because PostgreSQL is deployed on the same host. But DataSunrise doesn't necessarily have to be deployed on the same server as a database to be protected or monitored. The default login text field specifies the database username which DataSunrise should use to connect to the database. The password text field sets the database user password which DataSunrise should use to connect to the database. Connection with the database is needed to get metadata from the target database. Depending on the target database type you select, there could be more fields showing up. To get more information on these new fields not covered in this video, please refer to the DataSunrise User Guide. Click the Test button to check the connection between your database and DataSunrise. As you can see, the test is successful. So let's move on further. The Server drop-down list selects the DataSunrise server, DataSunrise instance, to open a proxy or a sniffer for. Previously, during the installation, our selection was local. That is why only this option is available here. The Action drop-down list selects an operating mode DataSunrise should employ to process requests to a target database. Two options are available: Proxy and Sniffer. When deployed in the Sniffer mode, DataSunrise is connected to a span port of a network switch. Thus, it acts as a traffic analyzer capable to capture copy of the database traffic from a mirrored port of the network switch. When deployed in the proxy configuration, DataSunrise works as an intermediary between a database server and its client applications. Thus, it is able to process all incoming queries before redirecting them to a database server. We'll go for Proxy. Port text field for proxy mode only. The number of network ports DataSunrise should be listening to. By default, it's auto-completed. In practice, a database is usually configured to listen on non-standard ports, and the DataSunrise proxy is configured to use the port which client applications use to connect to the server. Thus, client applications connect to the DataSunrise proxy instead of connecting to the database directly. Now click Save to save the changes. Note that the boxes for Create an Audit Rule for DML Operations and Create an Audit Rule for DDL Operations are checked. They enable you to create audit rules to audit all DML and DDL operations with your database. Now, click Finish. We're on the DataSunrise dashboard now. Let's go to the Configurations section to see how our database looks now. Make sure that the Databases section in the left pane is selected so that you can see the profile of our database. You can click Edit if you want to change some settings. Here you can see the database for which some audit rules have already been created. To see these audit rules, we need to go to the Data Audit section above. Make sure that the Rules section in the left pane is selected. This section lists all existing audit rules. Let's go to the Events section now. Obviously, this section contains no items as we've just created our database profile, and no events have been registered so far. Let's create a sample event for our existing audit rules. Let's make a test query to our database from pgadmin. Let's set up a new server instance before we go on. Before we make a test query, we can see all our sample database is listening to standard port 5432. We need to use a proxy so that all queries to our database are monitored. To do that, we need to change the standard port number for 5433. Now let's make a sample SQL query on the version of our database. And let's see what's changed in the DataSunrise. Here you can see our sample query registered. All other queries we have here are system ones. Thank you for your time. We've come to the end of this part of the tutorial.